All right. Hello, Beth.
Hello, Erin.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. What are we talking about today?
We are talking some more about working with collaborators.
Very important. Always a little tricky, but often extremely delightful. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
bet you have some good ideas as to how we can make it as delightful as possible.
I hope so. I think I have some good ideas. I'm excited to share them. This is part two in a three-part series. So if you haven't watched the first yet, go do that first and then come
Mhm.
back because I have now some tools to share in how we work with collaborators.
Yeah.
So diving in, um, yeah. So a whole lot of the first the first talk in the series is all about setting expectations with collaborators. And here I just wanted to show a few different tools that we use to help us set those expectations. You may find some of these very obvious. You may find some of them revelatory. Hopefully, there's something in here that is helpful to you when working with collaborators for helping you set good expectations. Um, okay, so the first resource that I wanted to share is just having an email template. This is, so, when we are contacted by somebody that wants to work with us as a specialized service facility or core facility where they are just paying for our time by the hour, then we have a email template that goes out that directly sets some expectations. So, that's what this is, that like somebody contacts us about working with us in this way. Here's the information that you need to know right in advance. And so this is mostly about money. But again, if you watch our first episode, money is one of the very hardest things to talk about, but the most important to set expectations for upfront. And this helps us do that. And it helps make sure that every time people are getting the same information, that we're not, and all of the information that we want to include. So we're not, forgetting, because here we go, just ping, like, here's the email that goes back out to them when they have initially contacted us.
Yeah, it saves so much time. And again, just make sure that everybody knows everything they need to.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the Another set of tools that we use when for the other like really big hard thing that we again talked about at the end of the first is who gets credit? How are we going to be acknowledged for our work? And so there are linked here a couple different ways to, some resources to help you have this conversation. So here is um, the ICMJE specific, here's some specific language that they recommend around who has earned authorship based on these criteria. And so you can share this with a collaborator and say, hey, based on this published definition here, I, we expect to be given credit in
Mhm.
authorship in a publication that might arise from this.
Yeah. Or that we don't. Sometimes we have people who we've briefly helped and we're like, no, we don't feel like we meet this content. Like,
Absolutely, and then that would lead into but please, it's very important that you acknowledge us. So while we don't feel we meet authorship requirements, please do acknowledge our work. Likewise, there is the contributor role taxonomy or credit spreadsheet or sort of workflow that we have turned into a spreadsheet that we have linked here that we find really, really, really helpful when putting together specifically statements of who did what. So we can pop over here and show you really quickly. It's kind of a low resolution screenshot here, but we have this here, this blank template here for anybody to use that we find super helpful. So we catch, anyone here that is being considered for authorship that has been involved in this project at any point. Then here, this credit taxonomy that we have used is all of the different ways that someone might contribute to a project that should be then included in authorship and sort of a description of what that is. And so this is really also helpful. I mean, helpful for anybody. We think this is a great tool, but particularly helpful in sort of unearthing to people, explaining to people why certain things do actually merit authorship that they may not have been thinking about from the beginning. So, you know, there's a lot of categories here, a lot of different ways that one can be intellectually involved in a project to the point that they should be an author.
Mhm.
And this helps make that clear. So this is a cool resource where, you know, we did not come up with the credit taxonomy, but Beth put this into a template here that anybody is welcome to use for their own
And to
project.
use early, use at the beginning of a project, not just at the end, because you'll forget that for projects that go on 4 or 5 years, that somebody came in and helped out for 3 weeks 3 years ago. And so as soon as somebody starts working on a project, saying, "Okay, at the beginning we set up this contribution table, put what you did as you do it," it makes it feels so terrible to have been forgotten on a paper.
Absolutely.
Um, so this helps ensure that that never happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And there have certainly been, I mean, we work in a lot of very big collaborations. We have certainly ended up with many times also, we will end up with a section down below of this person contributed, but didn't quite meet these requirements. However, we want to make sure that we have captured that information so it's not forgotten and so that we can acknowledge them. Because it's nice to acknowledge any individual who has contributed in some way, even if they don't merit authorship. And as a specialized service facility or core facility, it's super important for funding so that we can continue to exist as a core facility. That acknowledgement really does make a difference. So that is credit, tools for acknowledging that. Um, we also have a lab website. So in our lab website, we have a tab, Collaborate with Us. And in there, we have laid out very specifically a practical guide to image analysis collaboration. And we send this to any new collaborator and say, hey, we would love to work with you. Please read this page of our website. It answers what is the role of an image analyst and helps lay out from the very beginning of what we what we are expert at, what we don't necessarily do, and how to proceed with collaborations. So, if you're curious, go ahead and give it a read. And again, this is also then something that we can add to our email templates that we mentioned before of great. So now, here's the information about the billing, and now here's a link to this page. Please do go read it. This is important. Um, Meetings. So we actually have a lot of meetings, and I know it can be really not fun sometimes to look at the fraction of your week that is taken up by meetings. However, it's super, super important in collaborations for this continued expectation setting to have ongoing meetings. So we always have an onboarding meeting that happens before we start any work. And this is where we have the initial conversation about expectations of like, okay, we're going to work together. What does that look like? A meeting set aside just for the onboarding meeting. And then typically, I mean, so we work on projects of lots of different scales. Sometimes somebody hands us data, we're done with it in 2 weeks, we give it back. Like Fine. That does not need regularly scheduled meetings for the length of the project. But many times we are involved in projects that last a heck of a lot longer than that. And we have regular meetings that may be every other week, that may be every month, that may be, every quarter, de again, depending on the scale and the scope. But we have something on the calendar. And before that meeting is done, we have the next thing on the calendar. And what that helps in doing is making sure that those shared expectations we set in the beginning, we can continue to communicate about that. We can share progress. We have a chance to ask questions, and we can let people know, like, hey, this is kind of deviating this direction. How should we correct, like, should we correct course, or are we okay going off in that direction? Like, let's change our shared expectations now together because we have this established time to do so, rather than surprising people at the end when something has gone in the way that we didn't predict in the beginning. We
Yeah,
also have,
that onboarding meeting is so critical to just make sure that everything gets off on like the right foot.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, and I will admit sometimes we end up with multiple onboarding meetings. Again, depending on how things have come to us, there may be an onboarding meeting that is either, just me and the collaborator or just Beth and the collaborator to get the very initial conversations of, hey, what are they even asking us to do? And then we'll schedule a next onboarding meeting that brings in the postdoc or the RA that will be doing the image analysis in our team, where we can then guide the conversation into even more specifics about the technical details of the project that are really relevant to the person doing the image analysis, where then the, sort of team lead or PI level conversations, those expectations can be set in that first meeting. Forms, we have all sorts of forms, and this can really help in the metadata component, which I'm not going to start soapboxing about metadata. You will find, I swear I'm not going to. I can resist. You will find plenty of episodes where I do. But handing off metadata along with the images is really, really important and is something that is often a challenge or often forgotten, or things are handed in a way that is either incomplete or the metadata that the collaborator is handing to us is not in the structure or is not of the type that we actually need to be able to do our work. And so setting up a specific form that says exactly the questions that we need answered and in what way they need to be answered can help ease a lot of back and forth of, oh, hey, what was this thing again? Oh, I did. Wait, you didn't hand me that. Like, oh, I did, but it's in this file. Wait, what? Instead, here's a nice form that eases that because it's exactly what we need in the structure that we need it. And finally, a tool that I probably you think of more coming from sort of business world, but can actually be really helpful in academia. And we often end up putting in grant applications. So this may not be totally unfamiliar to folks in academia, but Gantt charts. They can be really, really helpful. So the idea being it's just a structure of some unit time going across the top. This we have in weeks, it can be months, it can be quarters, but having some idea going along in a time frame of what is the task that needs to be done and over what chunk of time will it be done. This can then make very clear, the act of putting this together can make clear, oh, if they want us to get done with our work by the end of week 4, they really need to get us the data in week 1 because this is how long the components take. And it can also make clear things like, oh, yeah, you know, pink task and blue task actually can be done at the same time. So, since the priority of this project is speed, maybe I have a postdoc working on the pink task and an RA working on the blue task in parallel because we need to get this done as quickly as possible. And it's okay to parallelize those. Or maybe, maybe the priority isn't speed. And so maybe we want to adjust this. Like maybe it would be better to do the pink task first because we learned something about it and can make the blue task then better or easier or faster. And so, since the priority isn't speed, but quality, maybe we'll take a bit longer and move the blue task just to after the pink task instead of at the same time. But setting it out like this can make it clear what can and can't be done at the same time, what needs to be given to us so that we can reach goals and deliver them on time and just shared again all about setting shared expectations. But this is, I think, a really helpful tool for sort of unearthing conversations and components of a big project that may not even be unearthed or clear until you have put them in this format. So one other tool that we like to use.
No, th this is all super helpful. And again, just sort of having this organization in upfront makes the communication of expectations, as we talked about last episode, so much easier and better. And
Yeah, absolutely. And I love structuring things. I love forms. I love charts and graphs. This is nothing, this is not a surprise, but I do think
unless this is your first episode of Ask Erin Dear
yes.
Beth, in which case, welcome.
Yes. But I think these are all very helpful tools, even if this is not an area, even if this is not a format that your brain loves to work in. These are, I think, helpful for everyone to adopt when working in collaborations and setting shared expectations.
Thank you so much for this. This is great.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.